Cool. Okay. There we go. Well, we're with Lee Jennings from the Funeral Portrait. I just wanted to start off. You guys are originally from Marietta, Georgia, which isn't exactly like a hotbed for hard rock. What was that scene coming up like for you guys, and how did it impact your sound?
So it's kind of weird. I grew up going to like local shows and stuff like that. I was really into more like smaller bands a lot growing up. Of course I had my favorites, of the bigger acts, but there was a local club. It was called Swayze's Venue, and it was like a 300 cap, all ages, no beer, no alcohol. Venue, one of its only kind, I feel like, and it was just like the birthplace for my love for live music. And before that I went to some shows at the Masquerade and stuff like that, but like that was definitely the place that I really fell in love with live music. And I got I got pretty lucky and I started like helping out there and kind of doing some stuff, and started then eventually working there for many of years. And I booked some of my then favorite bands. I'm a little bit on the older side and I had MySpace, and I used MySpace. I was like that 14-year-old kid that would book bands via MySpace. And then like the band or their tour manager would show up and be like, wait, you're just a 14-year-old kid. How are you going to write us a $2,000 check to play here? Like here I am writing a $2,000 check, to have, you know, some of my favorite bands play at my small club.
What was your MySpace profile song?
Oh my God. It all depends, right? Like I remember one time I got a girlfriend, and so of course, and I put girlfriend by Say Anything. That was like such a big moment for me because I was like, oh my God, I finally have a girlfriend. I could put, girlfriend from Say Anything. But no, because I grew up loving like the more like, the emo rock stuff. That was more my vibe. And it wasn't until later, I was still into like I was into like weird stuff too. Like I was into like grindcore, just like anything just like weird and artsy at the moment. Like I was really into this band called The Locust. They dressed up as locusts and they played grindcore. It was wild. That was the MySpace era though. That was what I loved.
That's like a 180 from the emo stuff, though. You can't get further apart, right?
Yeah, well, that was the thing is at one moment I'm wearing I remember this very vividly because it stuck with me for a long time. Is I remember I went to Warp Tour and I think it was 2004, 2005. I can't remember which year it was, but My Chemical Romance was playing, and their merch guy commented on my t-shirt. I had that band Bane. They're like a hardcore band from, I believe it's from like Boston area, and I had their shirt on, and he was like, "It's weird to see, like a young kid with a Bane t-shirt on buying, $100 worth of My Chemical Romance merch." So it's just like it was one of those things like that's just what I was into. I was like really into My Chemical Romance side of music, but also into the more like hardcore, like screamo or era of grindcore, whatever was like wild. I liked the more wild type of music, I guess.
I love the diversity. So let's talk a little bit about the record because this particular record was impacted a lot by COVID.
Yeah. Oh, yes, it was.
Yeah, there was so you had the studio time booked and you couldn't actually go there and physically record, right?
Yeah. So it's kind of crazy because to still think about that, we're talking about like COVID and like all of that kind of stuff. What now we're 5 years after the fact of it starting, is crazy because we started writing this record in like January 2020. And then we had the studio time booked literally the week that like the shutdown happened. And that turned into like us having to push the record back, has to be pushed the record back. And then we started writing songs, Suffocate City being one, via Zoom, literally like how we're talking right now, which is like one of the coolest moments I love to talk about because I'm like, how weird is it that we like wrote a song via Zoom, that then became like this huge song for us in moment, where we're just like, man, I just want to be in a studio. Like, and then it's like, oh, let's just jam on Zoom. So it's super funny to think about.
Was there an actual jam session on Zoom? Is that how?
Oh yeah. No, that's exactly so literally like like on here we can like share our screens and stuff like that. We would just share each other's screens of like cuz I have a studio here as you can see I'm in here, my studio and I was in here and we had two other producers and they were in their studios and we just would share each other's screens and record stuff. I would record a vocal take or write out some lyrics or whatever it is and then I would bounce it down and then send it to both of them. And then they would bring them back up on their screen and listen. And it was just like this. It was honestly like a big pain. I mean, it sucked. But it was the only way that we could keep it going. And again, I'm happy that we did it because then we wouldn't have Suffocate City. I think that's the only one that like actually made it out from the Zoom sessions. So
And it just recently went number one at radio. Do you remember where you were when you heard the news? And did
yes. Oh yes. Oh yes. That was crazy. So it's kind of weird. I remember we were getting ready to we were at sound check in oh my gosh, where was that? It was in Pennsylvania. It was Scranton, Pennsylvania. So we were at sound check for like this bigger show that we were like we honestly didn't know how big this show was going to be because it was kind of booked last minute and it was at one of our friends' venues. It was this guy Josh Balls. He used to play in Motionless in White. He opened up a venue in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and it's like an old movie theater that he turned into like an actual like venue. And like it's a pretty big room. It's like a 500 600 cap venue. And then first thing is I remember George, our manager, calling me and being like, "Hey, like I just got sent a Billboard article that your song's number one." And I said, no, 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 no. Because I don't think anybody realized or thought the song was actually going to get there. I think we all were like, oh, we're like going to sit under Lincoln Park for another 6 weeks, and, no one's going to be able to take out Lincoln Park. And then here we come and we did it. And I just remember I literally in the middle of like we were sound checking drums and I turn over to Homer, who's our drummer, and I said, wait a second. I said, George is calling me. I pick up the phone and he's like, bro, I just sent you this article. Oh my God, it's happening. And I said, what? And I hang up the phone, I check, and it happened. And it was a magical moment. And then that night, that show sold out too. And it was one of those like weird, like, what is our lives? Like this is like, are we dreaming? Like, is this real?
so how do you celebrate a number one song at radio?
Well, the biggest thing is I think we all just kind of kept living our lives. I think that's the whole thing is like I think none of us are taking any of it for like I guess for granted, right? Like I think we all are just very, I'll use the word blessed to say that it even happened or that that our band even got any opportunity to even get played on the radio at all. It's something that we never thought was going to happen for our band. We're like what I always say is like we're the emo active rock band, right? So like we have a lot of like emotional lyrics and some of the songs are pretty emo and have that vibe to it, like the early 2000s emo core stuff. And but we like to mix it up with like with the more active rock sound or a little bit more heavy hitting. And I just never thought that radio would like what we're doing. Because my whole life I was told, things have to be a certain way for it to work. And then, we release this record and, this song starts taking extremely well. And then I start talking and meeting with so many different people in rock radio that are just so nice to us and just so cool. And it just one thing to led to the next. It was honestly kind of weird. Again, I just never thought that it would happen. And so now, I got a plaque sitting behind me, which is pretty cool. With my name on it that I never thought would ever exist. So I'm just happy to be here.
And my understanding is that's Spencer's first number one as well.
It is. And that's a kind of wild thing to think about too, because I know that they've had success, right? They've had a lot of success outside of even the radio world. I think, him doing a song like this, again, I don't think he realized that it was going to be as successful as it was. Anytime that I've talked to him about it, he was just like, what, we moved up another one, what, we moved up another one. It was like every time it was just like, okay. And then I remember getting that because I was, the way I even learned about us getting a number one was uh George texting me that he got it from a friend of us being on the like the an article from Billboard. Like, I don't even think the full like chart was out yet. And I think, we were just like, what? And I just remember texting it, over to like Spencer and his team and everything and being like, look at this. And it was like, no way. I think everybody was just kind of blown away. And just, it's been kind of a crazy few months.
What's it been like building with Spencer? Because you guys did this his Silver Scream Con and you played some shows. Like, what's it been like building that relationship with him?
It's been really cool. We're it's wild because I talk about it a lot. Is a lot of stuff changed when we brought in our new manager. And when you have a team that really believes in you, um even if even if they, I don't know, for me, I just care about people that believe in us. And something about George and our team at the label, and every aspect of what this band is every single person that I talk to believes in this band. And that's so huge and important to us. And so George, our manager, took showed Spencer our band. It was like, hey, I think this would be a great addition to the Silver Scream Con. What do you think? And this was 2 years ago. Two Silver Scream Cons ago. And he was like, yeah, sure, why not? Let's have them open. We opened. I think we kind of blew everyone's expectations out of the water. And it was like a bigger moment than anybody realized. And that kind of was kind of what started it all. There was just, it was just such a weird momentum for that year that they were like, oh, you guys want to come and do it again? But this time we were actually out on tour of Five Finger Death Punch, and we had to fly off that tour, fly all the way to Boston, and we played acoustic like the first night of the con when they had their like RIP party. And again, we were like, oh, it's just going to be like 500 Ice Nine Kills fans, right, in this bar, and it's going to be fun. Maybe they will pay attention. It's acoustic. Who knows? Well, little did I know that it was 500 Funeral Portrait and Ice Nine Kills fans who were singing along the whole time. And Spencer's there, like all of Ice Nine's there, like all of their teams there. Like, it was this big moment of like, oh, all eyes are on us right now to play acoustic for the first time. Okay, so we've
Wow.
never played acoustic in front of really anybody before that. And we're like, oh, okay, let's just see how this goes. And it's just an explosion of 500 people singing along to, I think we played like 5 songs, but they all knew the words. And it was just this big moment and big like celebratory thing, because the song was doing well, because this was like September 13th or something like that. But the song wasn't as high up on radio, but everybody was like, oh, this is great, we're just excited that the song's out, and then so we'll see what happens. I mean, maybe we'll get to play Silver Scream Con again next year. I think a lot of kids have just associated us now with Silver Scream Con, which is cool. I'm super about.
The moment that sort of sold it for me was seeing you guys live, and like once I saw the live show, the energy, everything, it just sort of connected. It was like, just connecting the dots, and like now I get it. And then as soon as I saw it live, I dove back in deeper into the records, and I've been just listening to the record nonstop. So your live show is incredible. So
Thank you. Yeah, that's something that, we kind of pride ourselves on. Of course, I love the record and I like recording music. I like writing music, but I love performing. Performing is my love. That is my one true love. And that's why I like to stay out on the road a lot. And that's what we are doing. Next year we're gonna be on tour for a really long time. And I'm excited for that because I want to bring our live show bigger and badder each time too. So that's the next step is let's see what we can do, bigger next year.
Well, you guys have the tour with Catch Your Breath coming up. You talked about going out with Five Finger and Marilyn Manson. I feel like your sound is so diverse that you could be on any of those bills and still fit in.
Yeah, that is a huge thing for us too. Like I said, we're the emo active rock band, right? Which has kind of never been done before, at least in my book, and so it's one of those things that you're right. We crushed on the Five Finger tour. Hey, guess what? We also crushed on the solo Manson shows. And hey, guess what? I have a feeling we might crush on the Catch Your Breath tour. At least even before we did Five Finger, we went out with this guy Dead on a Sunday. He's like a TikToker that does like goth renditions of like pop songs. And guess what? We crushed on it and it was a lot of fun and people just have a great time watching our set. And that's what's really, really important to us is do we put on a fun show that everybody kind of gets to leave all their troubles behind at the door, and they get to just escape for even if it's 30 minutes, or an hour or whatever the long the set is, they get to just escape and be there and be present and, whatever they're dealing with doesn't follow them into the show.
The record has all these amazing guests on there. You have Bert from the Used, Danny from Asking Alexandria, Eva Under Fire. Is there something about this particular album and the songs that lent themselves to collaborating with outside artists?
Some of it was for us. I think the one that, to be honest, was the most surprising was, of course, Bert from the Used. I grew up, again, like I said, an emo kid, and the Used is one of my favorite bands. And it was one of those moments that we were all, the whole team was trying to find features to try and grow the audience because that's a lot what it is, right? It's kind of like you're going on tour with a band, but just online, right? So you get to tag them on Spotify or you get to like share posts on social media together or whatever it may be. And so we were like, well, I was like, I would love Bert from the Used on one of our songs. And so our A&R, she was like, I think he would sound great on You're So Ugly When You Cry. And I was like, oh my God, like, just even the idea of him listening to the song was insane. And getting, a text from him saying, hey, like, I love the song. I'm going to do it the next day. Like, can you send me the files right now? And I was like, what? It kind of just blew me away of just being like, this is my life. This is real, that one of my favorite singers is on one of my songs, especially it's such an important song to us, and so it was a wild moment, and then going to the others, like it was one of those things that both Dark Thoughts and Voodoo Doll had been released kind of before we announced the record. So we wanted something new for both of them. We wanted to bring in a new voice, especially like Danny, like he's an incredible voice. And then, Eve Under Fire, she's got such a great, great voice too. And I just wanted great vocal performances because that's very important to me, and then having Spencer to, on Suffocate City, it was one of those moments that we just were like, let's give these kids something different on some of these songs, more dramatic, and maybe the next record there'll be even more guests or something. Cause I even treat them like their own characters too, and when we talk about these music videos and stuff that we're working on, like all that stuff is so important to me to have characters and to build this bigger world.
The one thing that you talked about is that you have this incredible range on the record vocally, which I think sort of sets you guys apart from other bands. What do you attribute that vocal diversity to? Is it just influences or?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is influences. I think a lot of it is I grew up being a vocalist. Like I mean, that was my thing is I not just in bands, but like I did choir, I did musical theater, I was supposed to go to college to be for musical theater and I turned it down. I went to a special high school that was all about the performing arts. Like it's like in my now my blood, it's so ingrained in me to be a singer and to be a vocalist and be a performer that's what I wanted the record to be about, and I think that's something that our band, we talk about, especially with writing new material, um, no matter kind of what we do, it's still going to be the funeral portrait. And a lot of that comes with because of how my voice sounds, right? Is I've kind of a unique voice. I think I do at least. I don't know. I don't like to toot my own horn or anything like that. But I think when you hear a song, you're like, oh, that's Lee from the Funeral Portrait. You could tell, because again, we have songs like Holy Water, but we also have songs like Dopamine, or we have songs like You're So Ugly When You Cry, or Doom and Gloom, or The Alien, or whatever. Like all these songs sound completely different. They're all
Mhm.
completely different. But what makes them the same is one, it's the same band. I mean, that's it. Is it's the same band. It's the same guitarist, it's the same drummer, it's the same vocalist, the same bassist, and that's what really matters, and I think that's where the next record's going to go, is even almost, I don't want to say more diverse, but it's just going to be like we're going to write and record and do what we want to do. And I really believe in these songs, and it's so cool to see that other people believe in them just as strongly.
Lyrically, you've been really open about talking about mental health, battles with depression, anxiety, OCD. Why is it important to share that personal side of yourself in the music and with the fans?
That is it's, well, to me it's just something that people don't talk about, right? And I don't I kind of try and live my life as an open book. I try really hard to be personable. I tried to be just me. Um, and I think that's something that is missing from modern music. And you see it more and more, but I still think that, people kind of forget that we're human too, and I also want to be a voice for the voiceless. That's something that I talk about a lot. Is I know that people struggle with, anxiety and OCD and depression and these things that I have dealt with because I deal with them. I know that there's other people out there that deal with it. There has to be. So what I want to be is I want to be that voice, hopefully, for the people that aren't strong enough to talk about it or open enough to talk about it. And it seems to be connecting with a lot of people, and I kind of appreciate it, because again, I like to help people, and that's another reason why I like doing my band is and doing music is I feel like if I can help someone, to me that's all that matters. That's at the end of the day, I just want to help people.
One of my favorite tracks on this record is "Stay Weird," just like embracing all your imperfections and the things that make you unique.
Yeah, I mean that is a key track to me on this record. It's weird because I remember when we wrote it, we were all kind of like, oh, it's cool, like it's fine, and then we like really overperformed it and was like this is how it should be. Like it's gonna be this like huge like rock anthem, and it's and I was like, oh, it was a good moment that I was like, oh yes, I like really fell in love with the song. And it's wild because we wrote it to be this like a love letter to my past, and to little Lee, when I was when I was in middle school or high school, and finally discovering who I was and trying to be me. It's kind of a letter to be like, just be you, stay you, and things will work out, and it's been cool to see everybody's reaction to that song and how much everybody, relates to it.
Talking about advice to yourself, I just recently came across a tour post from like 2014. I think it must have been one of your first tours where you guys were going out. Is what do you wish the things that you know now, what do you wish you would have known then back at that in that 2014 tour?
Wow. That's crazy. I think about that a lot because this band's been doing this for like 10 years, right? And a lot of it we I think a lot of it was, you know, just keep going. I don't even think I would change anything of what we did or how we got here. It's just, things will be okay. Just keep going, and again, like, I don't take any of this, I'm not ever putting my feet up on the desk and just being like, all right, well, everybody do the work for me now. Like I got us a number one or anything like that, because that's not how this works. It wasn't just me, and it wasn't, we're just here doing what we love, you know? And I think the only thing I would say to younger us is just keep going and things will be fine, you know? And that's it's kind of what Stay Weird's about, you know, is that's really what that song's about.
The you were recently at Aftershock and you ran into Amy Lee from Evanescence. What was that experience like, and what was it that that experience like for you?
Yes, that was crazy. So Evanescence was like my first concert I ever went to, right? And it was the Nintendo Fusion Tour. Okay, I'm aging myself here. Okay, so and it was at the Tabernacle here in Atlanta, and that is where that's like our House of Blues. So it's like a 2,000 cap room. And I remember I went because I went because I was such a big Nintendo fan. I wanted to go play like the GameCube. It was like right when the GameCube came out, but you could go and test it or something or whatever. I don't remember. I got an ad from it from Nintendo Power magazine. And I was like, "Oh, I've heard this band on the radio once. My mom has like listened and I really like her voice." You know, I hadn't bought her record yet, but that weekend I went and I bought her record, which was my first, CD that I ever bought was, was Evanescence. And I just fell in love. That was like my first show, and I just felt like she was speaking to me. And so running into her, because that's what it was. It really was. I was in like the artist area, doing like interviews, and I'm standing there with my I have like a when I'm on tour, I have like an assistant that helps me with a lot of stuff, and she helps with merch. She does like our merch. She also does my makeup. She does a little bit of everything. And her name's Danny, and she taps me on the shoulder and she's like, Lee. I swear I just saw Amy Lee like walk out of the artist area. And I was like, no way. I was like, here, hold my drink. And I'm obsessed with Coke Zero. So I was like, here, hold my Coke Zero. So I gave her my Coke Zero. And I'm like, I start running out of the place. And I see Amy Lee standing there with her security, right? Because she's got like a head of security and her, like, I guess, assistant as well. I said, hey, I am so sorry. I don't mean to bother you, right? And she was like, "Oh, what's up?" And I was like, "Hi, I'm Lee. I sing for this band called The Funeral Portrait." And I'm like having this like big fanboy moment. And I tell her, I was like, "I don't mean to fanboy." And she was like, wait. You said your name was Lee. You're singing the band The Funeral Portrait. She was like, "I just did 2 interviews." And she said both of them said that I should check out your band, and that that you said in your interview that you look so much up to Evanescence and you like us so much, etc. And I was like, oh my god, like I was like, this is insane. I it was one of the wildest moments before in my life. And I was like, so I also, can we get a selfie? I don't want to be weird, but like, and she was like, no, I love that. Let's do it. And I took it and I posted it and I freaked out. I don't know. It was just a wild moment. Like, what a weird day.
Is it still having those moments on tour where you're like, you pinch yourself moments like that all the time?
Oh yeah. That was the Five Finger Death Punch tour the whole time, right? Like we got to play stadiums and arenas and places that like I remember, going to. Like we got to play we got to play Lakewood Amphitheater, which is like our big amphitheater here in Atlanta. And I grew up going to shows there. I saw Manson there. Like I remember seeing Avenged Sevenfold there. I remember My Chem. I remember Linkin Park. I remember Warp Tour there every year. So like the idea of playing that stage was just like insane to me. And then getting to play Bridgestone Arena, and then Hershey Stadium. Like, what? Like I'll never get used to that. I don't even care if we're headlining. It's something that this band is so proud of our roots and where we came from that I don't think any of us could ever get like jaded or like, oh, whatever. I'm just going to put my feet up and let everybody do everything for me. Like that's just not us.
But staying humble is a large part of the equation, right?
Yes. Well, and you could see when artists don't, and then they have one little shot of success, and then all of a sudden it goes away, because they start getting comfortable or they start being, have an ego or something like that. And that's something that this band will never have. And I don't care, like, because that's just who we are. Um, we'll never be like that.
I feel like that's why people have connected in such a large way with Jelly Roll because he's like the person that you see is he's that person. So there's no character or anything like that. He's just that guy.
Yeah, well, and that's the truth. I was very lucky. I got to meet him a few weeks ago. Literally as soon as this last tour was over, I flew out and I got to talk and meet with him, and that was something that him and I kind of connected on really heavily was the fact of us. He of course at such a massive level compared to what we're doing, but still like it was one of those moments of just being like he could tell that that's so much of what we do, and I know that that's how he is. He eats, sleeps, and breathes his art, but he also eats, sleeps, and breathes his connections with humans, and how much he loves his fans and stuff. And that's how we are. I'm always in our Facebook group, our Discord, etc., just being like, hey guys, how are you guys? Hope you guys are feeling well, stuff like that. Just being a little nice to people sometimes can go such a long way.
It's interesting you bring up My Chemical Romance earlier because in the early days of like MySpace, that band was super active. Like I remember like the first time that they came to Toronto, like he was having an active relationship with fans, like messaging them. Like it wasn't just a one-sided thing.
Yeah, well, and that's the way you do it. Like I'm trying to, not trying to, but I feel like we are creating fans for life with this band because I am friends with a lot of them, like actual friends with people, that I've met on the road. Not everyone. I can't be friends with everybody, but it's still one of those things that it's like, and a lot of that comes from the fact of being like I stand at merch every single night for hours, meeting everyone, doing what I can to help people. Like I one of our shows on this Catch Your Breath tour sold out really, really fast. And I had this fan, she like reached out to me. She was like, hey, like I know the show sold out. I was planning on getting tickets probably day of just because money's so tight, et cetera. And I was like, you know what? I was like, I know we'll have at least 5 guest list spots. I can save you one, and she was like, oh my God, thank you so much. And it's stuff like that that means the world to these people, and I don't know. I want to help people out, and that's how you do it. Is the world needs that. That world needs that more than ever before now.
100%. Just wrapping up here, but it's I feel like your fans have this crazy connection with you. Like is there something like a moment that sticks out for you where they've done something to show their devotion to the funeral portrait?
Good job with devotion. Yes, there's been a lot, but I think a big one. We got this on. Well, a big one is almost every day we get, of course, gifts and artwork and all this stuff. We have these one fans. They made us a rug. It was like our logo as a rug, and I'm not talking like a small rug. It's like a huge rug. And then like stuff like that is so cool. But I think another thing is like them, of course, getting like the tattoos and stuff like that. But I think we got this one little booklet that was kind of like a fan project, and it was just like a bunch of people that came together and put all their art together and wrote little messages and stuff, and that was really cute. And we get the bracelets and all that kind of stuff. But I think for me, it's seeing fans help out each other, right? Of being like just now, in our Facebook group, someone started a card, like where you like card exchange for the holidays, and they got like 600 people to do it. So
Oh wow.
like, so there's like what that's 1,200 cards going in the mail for funeral portrait fans to each other, and I was like, that is incredible. And especially just during the holidays where, it might not be the best time for a lot of people that have lost loved ones, or, that are working extra hard, or, it's just a weird time, or they don't have loved ones, and I just loved that. That was such a special moment to see them organize that all on their own too.
Oh, that's incredible. Well, we're almost out of time here, but thank you so
Yeah.
much for doing this today. The radio
Yes.
script, we sent it over to Autumn and George, so if you could record those would be fantastic. And I so appreciate you guys. When you guys come through Toronto, I'm looking forward to checking you out again. So
Yeah, of course, of course. I have a question. Do you want me to record these liners on my own and I could just send them to you guys?
that'd be perfect. Yeah.
Awesome. I can definitely do that. I'll do that today and I'll send them out literally as soon as we're done talking.
Thanks so much. I appreciate everything, and we'll let you know when this goes live.
Awesome. Thanks, my friend. I'll see you soon.
Yeah. Take care. Bye.
All right, bye.